On the 18th of March, Iran's Revolutionary Guard published a target list on state media, 6 energy facilities across Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE. Names, locations, and a deadline measured in hours. Then, Iran fired missiles and drones at nearly every one of them. Iran is targeting American energy assets across the Gulf, operated by the likes of ExxonMobil, ConocoPhillips, and Accidental Petroleum. As of this morning, day 21 of this war, Qatar Energy's CEO said the largest natural gas facility on the planet will take 3 to 5 years to repair. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through exactly what Iran hit, which American companies are exposed, and why the economic fallout from the last 72 hours will outlast this war by half a decade. Before we continue, thanks a lot for tuning in, and as always, please make sure to subscribe and like the video so you never miss a critical update. This all started with an Israeli strike that crossed a line nobody expected. On March 18th, Israel launched strikes on Iran's South Pars gas field. This is the largest natural gas reserve on the planet, shared between Iran and Qatar. Israeli jets hit 4 gas treatment facilities in southern Iran. 2 refineries with a combined daily output of 100 million cubic meters went dark. And what happened next followed a logic that Washington either failed to anticipate or chose to ignore. The IRGC released its target list within hours, not behind closed doors, but publicly on state media with the direct instruction, evacuate these 6 facilities immediately because they will be struck in the coming hours. Then Iran delivered on that promise. The first target to absorb serious damage was Ras Laffan Industrial City in Qatar, 80 kilometers northeast of Doha. This is the largest liquefied natural gas production complex on Earth. It handles roughly 20% of the world's entire LNG supply. 5 Iranian missiles were launched at the facility. Qatari defenses intercepted 4. 1 got through, and that single missile triggered fires across the site, destroying components that cannot be rebuilt quickly. Qatar Energy's CEO Saad Al-Labi spoke to Reuters just hours ago. His assessment is devastating. 2 of Qatar's 14 LNG trains are wrecked. 1 Gasto liquids facility is gone. The specific equipment destroyed. The cold boxes are the cooling mechanisms that chill natural gas into liquid form for transport. Without cold boxes, the gas cannot be moved. It cannot be shipped. It cannot be sold. Al-Kabi put a number on it. 17% of Qatar's LNG export capacity has been erased, not damaged. Erased. That is 12.8 million tons per year offline and 20 billion in estimated annual revenue gone. And here is the number that should concern every energy trader and every government in Europe and Asia. Repairs will take 3 to 5 years. That facility cost $26 billion to build. The cold boxes are gone. This is not a maintenance issue. This is a multi-year reconstruction project, and nobody has even started because there are no workers on site. All 10,000 were evacuated on day 3 of the war. None have returned. But what most people are missing, and we will come back to this toward the end, is who actually owns the money inside Ras Laffan. Qatar Energy's expansion partners include ExxonMobil and ConocoPhillips. Riyadh Energy's analysis shows that roughly 2/3 of ExxonMobil's global LNG equity volumes are concentrated in Qatar. When Iran struck Ras Laffan, it did not merely damage Qatari sovereign infrastructure. It punched a hole directly through ExxonMobil's most important liquefied natural gas portfolio on the planet. ExxonMobil declined to comment. ConocoPhillips released a statement pledging continued commitment to the partnership. Translation: the lawyers are talking. The insurers are panicking, and nobody knows who pays for 5 years of lost production. And Al-Khattabi himself told Reuters something that should be front-page news everywhere. He said he had been personally warning American energy executives and the U.S. Secretary of Energy for weeks that exactly this would happen if Iranian energy facilities were hit. His words: "I was always warning them that that could be detrimental to us." The U.S. Department of Energy referred questions to the White House. The White House said nothing. Al-Kabi was ignored. Then his facility was destroyed. Most people are told this war is about nuclear weapons, regime change, and deterrence. In reality, the operational consequence of this conflict right now today is the systematic destruction of American energy investments across the Gulf by an adversary that cannot compete with U.S. air power, but has found a way to make Washington pay in dollars instead of blood. Now stay with me, because what Iran struck next changes the entire equation for global oil supply, and almost no one is covering it correctly. On March 19th, an Iranian drone hit the Samref refinery in Yanbu, Saudi Arabia. The Saudi Defense Ministry confirmed it. A ballistic missile aimed at the Yanbu port itself was intercepted. Staff at SAMREF were evacuated. Crude oil loadings at the port were temporarily halted. Now, the reported physical damage was described as minimal, but the strategic damage is enormous. And here is why. When Iran effectively closed the Strait of Hormuz at the start of this war, it severed the primary route for every barrel of oil leaving the Gulf. Saudi Arabia's response was to push crude west through its 715 meters east-west pipeline, which runs from the eastern oil fields all the way across the desert to the Red Sea port at Yanbu. Before the war, Yanbu moved about 1 to 1.5 million barrels a day. By March 9th, the International Energy Agency reported that pipeline throughput had surged to 5.9 million barrels a day. Yanbu became the last open door for Gulf crude. Every tanker, every buyer, and every refinery in Asia and Europe that still wanted Saudi oil had one address, Yanbu, and Iran just put a drone through the roof of the refinery sitting next to it. SAMREF is a joint venture between Saudi Aramco and ExxonMobil. Capacity 400,000 barrels per day. Products include gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, marine fuel, and propane. Aramco and ExxonMobil had recently agreed to expand the facility into a fully integrated petrochemical complex. That expansion is now an open question because the only functioning crude export outlet left in the Gulf has now been proven vulnerable. The fallback plan has been hit, and Iran demonstrated it can reach the Red Sea coast, not just the Persian Gulf. Saudi Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan al Saud responded with language that diplomats almost never use. He said Saudi patience with Iranian aggression is not unlimited. He said trust in throne has been, and this is a direct quote, completely shattered. That phrasing does not come from a country managing a temporary disagreement. That phrasing comes from a government reevaluating decades of regional security architecture in real time. Now consider the UAE. On March 16th and 17th, Iranian drones struck the Shah gas field about 110 miles southwest of Abu Dhabi. A fire broke out. Operations were suspended. This facility is the world's largest ultra-sour gas development. It provides roughly 20% of the UAE's total gas supply. It produces 4.22 million tons of granulated sulfur every year, approximately 5% of global output. And here is the part that connects to your grocery bill, not just your gas pump. Sulfur is a critical raw material for phosphate fertilizer production. Major global buyers, including Morocco's OCP group, depend on this supply. The Strait of Hormuz was already carrying 30 to 35% of the world's nitrogen-based fertilizer exports before the war. Fertilizer prices have climbed 30% since February 28th. This is not just an energy crisis. It is becoming a food security crisis. And it started with a drone hitting a gas field in the desert. The Shah field is operated by Adadin Sour Gas, 60% owned by Abu Dhabi's national oil company and 40% owned by Accidental Petroleum, a U.S. energy major. Again, American corporate money, again on Iran's published target list. The pattern is consistent, deliberate, and unmistakable. The UAE absorbed more than just Shah. The Hubshan gas facility was shut down after intercepted missile debris fell on the site. The Bab oil field was targeted. Dubai International Airport, once the busiest in the world for international flights, was hit by Iranian drones. On March the 16th, a fuel tank fire broke out near the runway. Abu Dhabi briefly closed its airspace. The Fujairah oil industry zone, a critical alternative export terminal on the Arabian Sea, was struck. The UAE Defense Ministry confirmed it dealt with 13 ballistic missiles and 27 drones from Iran in a single wave. And behind all of this sits the Strait of Hormuz. Before February 28th, more than 100 commercial vessels transited the strait every day. According to S&P Global Market Intelligence, only 21 tankers have made it through since the war started. 21 in 21 days versus more than 100 per day before. Over 400 ships are anchored in the Gulf of Oman waiting. At least 20 vessels have been attacked. On March 1st, the tanker Skylight was hit off Oman's Musandam Peninsula. Reuters reported 4 crew members were injured, and the 20-person crew was evacuated. The same day, the MKD Va was struck by an unmanned surface vessel. Its engine room exploded. 1 Indian sailor died. On March 11th, a Thai-flagged vessel was hit and caught fire. On March 12th, a China-owned ship broadcasting its Chinese ownership on its tracking system was hit with shrapnel near Jebel Ali. Iran's new supreme leader, Moshabbeh Kameh, has declared the strait will stay closed for the duration of the war, but the blockade is not absolute. Iran has allowed its own tankers through, exporting over 16 million barrels since March 1st, primarily to China. Chinese-linked vessels have been given passage. India and Pakistan have negotiated limited transit rights. The blockade is selective. Western allied shipping is locked out. Everyone else negotiates at Tehran's discretion. Iran has turned the most important energy choke point on the planet into a toll gate, and it decides who pays and who passes. The economic numbers are staggering. Brent crude briefly traded above $190 on March 19th. Dubai crude, the pricing benchmark for Asian markets, shattered records above $150 a barrel. The U.S. national average gasoline price rose to about $3.88 a gallon on March 19th, according to 8AA data cited by Reuters. Gulf oil production has dropped by 10 million barrels per day since March 12th. The IEA responded with the largest emergency reserve release in its history, 400 million barrels. That covers approximately 4 days of global consumption. The U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserve holds about 415 million barrels, with a maximum drawdown of 4.4 million barrels per day, and it takes 13 days for that oil to reach domestic markets after a presidential order. Across Asia, the damage is accelerating. The Philippines moved government workers to a 4-day week to cut fuel consumption. Indonesia's fuel subsidies are threatening to breach the country's 3% GDP deficit ceiling. India is scrambling to buy crude from Russia at a premium. The IMF's managing director, Christina Georgieva, warned of rising inflationary pressure on the entire global economy. Global stock markets have fallen 5.5% since February 28th, with Asian exchanges hit hardest. And while the Gulf burns, Israel is escalating on a parallel track. On March 19th, Israeli forces killed Iran's intelligence minister, Ismail Khatib, inside Iranian territory. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz confirmed the operation. 3 senior Iranian officials have been killed in 24 hours. Larijani, the Basi commander, and Khatib Katz announced that Israeli forces now operate under a standing order. If there is actionable intelligence and a confirmed target, they strike. No further authorization required. Iran's response came through Mojtaba Kham, who declared that every drop of blood will carry a price the killers will soon pay. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi warned of consequences beyond anyone's control. Now here is the fracture that changes the trajectory of this conflict. Washington asked for a naval coalition to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Trump publicly named the countries he expected to join: the United Kingdom, France, Japan, South Korea, and China. Several allies initially resisted joining a U.S.-led naval effort in the strait, with Japan, Greece, and Germany ruling out military operations at that stage. Britain said it did not want to be drawn into a wider war, but later approved U.S. use of British bases for strikes on Iranian missile sites targeting ships. And this is where the entire strategic picture collapses into a single contradiction. The stated objective of this campaign was to neutralize Iran's nuclear capability and break the regime's hold on power. 3 weeks in, the nuclear facilities have been struck. Senior leaders have been killed. Iran's conventional military has taken enormous punishment, but the regime has not collapsed. A new supreme leader is in place. Retaliatory strikes have intensified, not stopped. And the cost of the war is being paid not in Tehran, but in Doha, Riyadh, Abu Dhabi, London, Manila, and every American gas station between New York and Los Angeles. Iran figured out something that the war planners either underestimated or ignored. You do not need to shoot down an F-35 to win an economic war. You need a $200 drone and a $26 billion target. You need to close a 21-mile-wide waterway and let the global oil market do the rest. You need to make the cost of continuing the war more painful than the cost of ending it. And every central banker, every petroleum analyst, every sovereign wealth fund manager on this planet is now running the same calculation. Has this war already crossed the line where the economic destruction outpaces whatever strategic gain either side is pursuing? Ross Laffin, $26 billion in infrastructure. 17% of Qatar's LNG capacity was deleted for half a decade. Samref, the last open door for Gulf crude, proven vulnerable. Shah Gas Field, Accidental Petroleum's flagship asset, darked 21 tankers through Hormuz in 3 weeks. Brent above $100, Dubai crude at record highs, hundreds of millions of extra dollars a day coming out of American wallets. The IEA's reserve release covers 4 days. The UK, France, Germany all saying no. 3 Iranian officials died in 24 hours, and Tehran is hitting harder, not softer. Yet Qatar's energy minister says he warned Washington repeatedly, and Washington did not listen. The cold boxes at Ras Laffan are gone. The repairs will take years. The question that nobody in Washington, Tehran, or Jerusalem has answered is what the endgame looks like when the facility that feeds 20% of the world's LNG supply was destroyed because the people who were warned chose not to act. And until someone answers that question, every American energy investment in the Gulf sits inside the same targeting envelope that Ras Laffan sat in 72 hours ago. Thanks a lot for watching. I really appreciate your support. Join the discussion in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts. Who do you think has the upper hand in the war? Do you think there will be a ceasefire anytime soon? Let me know. Please subscribe and like the video if you want to stay updated, and click the video on the screen to see.